Upside Down by Alexandar Kushner. Alexandar Kushner was a Russian poet and writer. He was born in 1936 in Leningrad, now known as St. Petersburg, Russia. He grew up in a family of Jewish intellectuals, with his father being a translator and his mother being a doctor. Kushner graduated from Leningrad State University in 1958 with a degree in Russian language and literature. He began his career as a poet in the 1960s, and he was associated with the Leningrad School of Poetry. In addition to poetry, Kushner also wrote novels, essays, and plays. He was a member of the Soviet Writers' Union, but was also critical of the Soviet government and its policies. As a result, he faced censorship during the Soviet era. His work was often published abroad. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Kushner became more politically active and was involved in various social and cultural organizations. Kushner received numerous awards and honors during his lifetime. He passed away in 2021 in St. Petersburg at the age of 85. The themes of Alexandar Kushner's poetry are varied and cover a broad range of topics. His poetry often explores the complexities and contradictions of the human experience. His poems also reflect a philosophical concern with the meaning of existence, often exploring themes of alienation, isolation, and the search for identity. Kushner's poetry is also concerned with the ways in which history and memory shape our understanding of the world and our place in it. As a Jewish writer in the Soviet Union, Kushner's work often deals with themes of Jewish identity and culture. His poetry often reflects a deep appreciation of the natural world, exploring themes of ecology, environmentalism, and the relationship between humanity and nature. Alexandar Kushner originally wrote his poems in Russian language. Therefore, it is a bit difficult to find English translations online. This is one of his limited English translations available online under the title I Was Wrong. Let's try to understand Upside Down. In this poem, the writer portrays of a character who is introduced as an upside down. Upside down is a term used to introduce a misfit in the society. He refuses to conform to the expectations and norms of the society around him. Instead, he chooses to do things in his own way, even if it leads to ridicule and laughter. The idiomatic expression, "talk of all the town," implies that he was the subject of much discussion or gossip in the community where he lives. In the last line, "out of spite" indicates that he responds to people's demands or even small requests out of malicious or resentful intent. The second stanza indicates his inability to understand the fluid nature of water and the solid nature of the land. He is also unable to understand the logic behind floating of a boat. In the third stanza, the writer continues to describe the peculiar behavior of the character upside down. He had the habit of reading and writing his letters from right to left or in reverse order. His behavior leads to confusion and misunderstanding. Here, the dunderhead is an informal term to describe a foolish man in a humorous way. This also indicates upside down's behavior is also foolish and perhaps even a bit ridiculous. The last 4 lines reveal another peculiar trait of upside down's character. These lines describe his fear of crossing the bridges and his tendency to wade through water instead. This adds to the portrayal of upside down as someone who behaves in unconventional ways. Now, one can argue that this person is having a serious mental condition that affects his perception and understanding of the world. However, since the poem is written in a humorous and light-hearted tone, it is possible to view the character as fanciful creation. The fourth stanza reveals upside down's encounter with the waiter in a restaurant. By asking for a pair of socks with clocks on them, the character is making an unusual and unrealistic request since socks with clocks on them don't exist. Additionally, by asking for them to be in a box, the character is adding another level of complexity to the request, making it even more absurd. Overall, this stanza highlights the unconventional and eccentric behavior of upside down. This stanza describes an event in which a circus came to town, and the character here in this poem, who is upside down, went to see it. His behavior was unusual and entertaining. In truth, he was actually funnier and more entertaining than the professional clown performers in the circus. This highlights the idea that being different or unconventional can sometimes be a source of amusement and delight for others. This stanza describes how Upside Down received a letter from his aunt. The use of phrases, perhaps I ought, perhaps I will, perhaps I can't. Now, here, perhaps is a shortened form for the word perhaps. These phrases suggest that he may struggle with basic reading skills or may have difficulty understanding written language due to his unconventional way of thinking and processing information. In the last stanza, the phrase, he eyed it this way, eyed it that, indicates that the upside down is looking at the letter from different perspectives, perhaps trying to read it in his own unique way. However, he fails to understand the message and ends up sticking the letter in his hat. The aunt's letter scolds him for his peculiar behavior and tells him that he needs to conform to societal norms if he wants to be respected by others. The upside down's character's tendency to do things differently from others is highlighted here, and the aunt's letter is an attempt to change his behavior. Throughout the poem, the unconventional behavior of Upside Down reinforces his tendency to do things differently and suggests that he is not interested in conforming to societal norms or expectations. What are the themes discussed in the poem Upside Down? The very first theme is how the misfits are looked down upon. The poem portrays the upside down as someone who is different and does not fit in with society's expectations. Throughout the poem, the upside down is ridiculed and laughed at by others for his unusual behavior and lack of conformity. The aunt's letter towards the end of the poem reinforces the societal expectations and pressures for the upside down to behave like everyone else, even if it goes against his nature. This theme highlights how society can be quick to judge and exclude those who do not conform to their norms and expectations. The poem explores the idea of being different and not conforming to societal norms. The upside down does everything in an unconventional way, such as reading and writing backwards and refusing to cross bridges. The upside down's uniqueness is celebrated even though he is seen as strange by others. The poem suggests that it's okay to be different and that being oneself is more important than fitting in with others. Perception and understanding. The poem plays with the idea of how we perceive and understand the world around us. The upside down struggles to understand simple things like sailing in a boat or reading letters correctly, which highlights how our perception and understanding shape our experiences. The poem Upside Down touches on the theme of social expectations. The upside down in the poem is portrayed as someone who does not conform to societal norms and expectations, and as a result is often seen as a source of amusement and ridicule by others. Let's discuss about the techniques used in the poem Upside Down. The language used in the poem is simple and straightforward, making it easily understandable for readers of all ages. The language is also playful and humorous, adding to the light-hearted tone of the poem. Alexandar Kushner arouses humor in the reader's mind through its use of absurdity and exaggeration. The character of Upside Down is depicted as someone who defies all norms of society and behaves in an opposite manner. This creates a comical effect as the reader can easily picture the absurdity of such behavior. For example, when Upside Down is told to turn right, he turns left out of spite. This behavior is comical because it goes against the expected norm of turning in the direction that one is told. Similarly, the description of Upside Down reading and writing his letters backside for adds to the humor as it is an opposite behavior to what is considered normal. The image of Upside Down wading through water instead of crossing a bridge also adds to the absurdity and humor. The writer has used a regular rhyme scheme throughout the poem. For example, in the first stanza, the words down and town rhyme together. Right and spite rhyme together. AA, BB. So throughout the poem, this rhyme scheme continues. The writer creates irony through Upside Down's absurd and abnormal behavior. The use of parentheses can be taken as a technique used in the poem. This technique is often used to provide additional information, clarification, or as an aside to the main idea of the sentence. In the fourth stanza, unless the water was too deep or the embankment was too steep, provides additional information about the character's behavior. The poet is able to maintain a light-hearted, playful tone throughout the poem. So these are the literary devices or techniques employed by the writer in the poem Upside Down. This is the end of the explanation of the poem Upside Down by Alexandar Kushner. I'll come back to you with another Booktopia lesson.